Hello again, War Thunder players. This lesson is going to be over close air support in Sim, and more specifically how to locate targets and how to use your ordnance effectively. So the first thing we're going to cover is how to spot ground targets. Locating targets is usually the hardest part of close air support. The way War Thunder renders tanks for you to see, especially at longer distances, it can be almost impossible to find enemies on your own. So these are some basic tips you may have already picked up, but just in case you haven't, I'll list them here. Look for tracers of enemy shots. Look for movement, especially from enemy spawns or places where enemies have known to be. Zoom in on your map and then see where friendlies are calling out for attention on the map. And if you're really desperate, you can fly very, very low over the battle and listen for engine sounds. So other than that, I don't really have any techniques I can really show you. It's just those tips. The more you do them, the better you get at them. Practice, practice, practice. That's sort of been the message in all of my lessons. The more you do it, the better you are at it. So, the first thing we're going to cover is bomb drops. Bombs are probably the toughest things to get kills with in ground forces, just because you have to drop them very, very close to enemy tanks. And even after you drop them, it's going to have to wait there a second or two before it explodes so it doesn't destroy you, which gives your enemies a chance to escape. So making sure that you drop your bombs as precisely as possible is going to make sure that your enemies can't get away in time before the bomb explodes. So here's some basic tips for you. When it comes to attacking ground units, there's no right way to do it. Just a couple ways that never ever work. So I'm going to consider those the wrong way and show you how not to do it the wrong way. The most important thing for bomb dropping is your attack angle. If you attack from too low, you're more likely to drop too far away or too close. I'm coming in with a PE-2 with a 250-pound bomb trying to destroy this Panzer IV. And I've come in too low and I drop my bomb and it is ineffective because I drop it too far away. Now I know this plane, as well as others like the Ju-87, are classified as dive bombers, but dive bombing is really effective against targets that aren't moving. And what you're trying to bomb is usually a moving target or a target that has an ability to run away. So dive bombing is just not going to be effective enough for what you're trying to do, because by the time you start your dive, there's a pretty good chance that tank that you're going to try to kill has already moved or is going to move, and with a dive bomb you just can't move enough left, right, up, and down to get your bomb to properly land on target. So my suggestion is to pick a medium angle of attack, one that isn't too high, too low, approach from a medium angle of attack, and get as close as possible. This is going to be important for every type of ground ordnance. Get as close as possible. So once you've gotten so close that you feel the need to pull up and run away, you'll want to pull up, and just as the entirety of the tank has left the gun site, that is the time to drop your bomb. Make sure not to pull up too hard on the stick after making the attack run, or you might stall out and hit the ground. Making sure you survive is more important than getting a kill. Even if you miss the bomb drop, you'll be able to head back to the runway, get a new bomb, and try again. So here's an example of a good bomb drop. It's the start of the match, so I don't have any trouble spotting some enemies to bomb, and immediately I see a pair of Panthers that are sitting right next to each other, and I'm carrying two 1,000-pound bombs on the bottom of my Typhoon. So I go for broke and try to get both of them here at the same time. Notice how I fly in, tanks in my gun sight, pull up when I get very close, and release the bombs just as they fall out of my gun sight. Now on that bomb drop, I dropped them just a little bit early. They weren't completely out of my gun sight at the time I dropped those bombs, and you can tell they landed just a little bit short of them, but still close enough to kill one of them and track the other. So if I were an instructor, I would give that bomb drop a B. It was almost perfect, and it still resulted in a kill. So this next bomb drop is a definite A+. After destroying that Panther, I flew back to the airfield and rearmed with 1,000-pound bombs. I flew adjacent to the battle and noticed a tank driving up a very narrow passage and away from me. So this time I know that I'm going to have to drop the bomb just a tiny bit later than I did the first time to land it perfectly, and then a little bit later still to make sure that it accounts for the forward movement of the tank. And from the cockpit you can see I got the kill. We'll go back to the outside and see where exactly they landed next to the tank. If he would have stopped, those bombs would have destroyed him, so he decided to keep going, and even then it wasn't enough, and he was still destroyed by the bombs. A+. Okay, so the next ordnance we're going to talk about is rockets. Rockets are pretty similar to bomb drops. You want to approach them from the same attack angle, and still get as close as possible, especially with HVARs, because they have a pretty bad tendency of flying anywhere but where you aim them. My suggestion for aiming RP3s and HVARs and any other rocket is to aim with the center of the reticle just to the top left or top right of the tank and fire, and the rockets will drop just a little bit and either fly left or right off of the wing and usually end up hitting the target. Rockets are usually the easiest to get online, but they are also the most likely to fly offline after firing, so there's some good risk and reward when it comes to rockets. The only outlier when it comes to rockets is the big rockets you get on the FW-190s and the 109G6. These rockets, especially when you have your weapons maintenance crew skill up all the way, fly straight and centered every single time. And they are the easiest to use and the easiest to get a kill with because they are also incredibly powerful. With 190s, you just need to aim with the second tick marker down on the tank and hit fire when you're close. And with the 109G6, you have to do the opposite and go 2 ticks up and then fire. Alright, so the final ordnance we're going to talk about is guns. But more importantly, we're going to be talking about German guns, because German guns in Tank Simulator are the only ones that ever seem to be effective. The main airplane that you'll be flying if you want to use guns effectively is going to be the HS-129. The B2 and the B3 variants fly very slowly, but they are very stable. So it's very easy to get the big guns they carry online. It's just you have to take pretty long attack routes and you have to deal with being very slow. At least they managed to stick on some extra armor to keep you safe. So my advice for flying the HS-129s is to, again, take very long approaches towards your enemy, fly away from them for a little bit after you attack so that you can turn around and make another long attack run. The longer you have to approach your target with your guns aimed up on him, the more likely you are to hit. Personally, I prefer using the HS-129B3 because the 75mm cannon on that plane is just as effective as a Panzer IV 75mm cannon. Once you become familiar with the HS-129B3, using its 75mm gun, especially to the sides of tanks, will mean you'll one-shot many enemies of any rank. This thing is effective even in Tier 5 Max BR sim battles. The only other advice I can give you for the B2 is the recoil pushes the nose of the plane down, so be prepared to push up the nose a little bit with your flight stick as you fire. Alright, well that wraps up this lesson. Hopefully now you have the skills you need to become a good close air support pilot. So, I thank you for watching. I hope to see you out in some Tank Simulator battles. And leave a comment and subscribe. There should be another lesson coming out in a week or two here about dogfighting. So yeah, see you then.